And we're live soon, or almost. I think we're live. Okay. All right. Hey, guys. Hey, all. And gals, and guys, and girls, and ladies, and boys, and men. Welcome to the Meshery meeting for March 11th. This is our dev call. We have it once a week. Welcome, welcome. Take care of some housekeeping items. We're going to promote a couple of people in the Zoom chat, a few of the maintainers. And yeah, if you guys don't mind, drop your names into the meeting minutes while you wait. Great. Okay. Yeah. Please drop your name in. And let's make sure we've got our full agenda. We got Guanming, do you mind listing your work down here? And maybe that's something we can touch on, go over, a relationship engine. And
Okay. Okay.
great. Okay. So as we get up and going, do we like to take a moment just before we get into the thick of our different topics? We like to take a moment to welcome newcomers and get a chance to say hi to people, make sure that everybody gets to know one another. There's a lot of us, so it's good to get connected with as many people as you can. Aditya Apasani, have you been on this meeting before?
No, this is my first time. Hi.
Oh, nice. Oh, very good. There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you mind just saying hi and just kind of where you're calling in from or what brings you here or, whatever
Yeah.
you want to say.
Hi, guys. I'm Aditya. I'm currently pursuing my master's in Dublin, Ireland. And I've been exploring few repositories in open source from, I guess, a couple of months. And I have contributed to Aqua Security Trevi open source repository. And now I'm contributing at Meshery. Like I have few PRs open.
Nice. Yeah, good. Hey, did your PR get deleted with when the trivia repository got deleted by OpenClaw, by Open, whatever it
Yeah,
was?
yeah. Two of them got deleted.
Oh yeah. Okay. Really? Did they get recovered though?
I don't know actually because they are just recovering everything right now and they're in the recovery process. Though they have told that they have recovered it, but I guess there is some a major chunk of the part has to be recovered.
Wow. Okay. Has everybody heard that news? Somebody, some ill-intentioned individual. Actually, Aditya, do you wanted to say what it was? What happened?
Yeah, basically, the guy I don't know who was it, but he actually messed up with the GitHub Actions, and he put up the code. Actually, he put up the code in the CI/CD pipeline, and that crashed the whole app. So there was some issue with the GitHub Actions.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. A hacker took advantage of sort of known insecure configurations of GitHub workflows, GitHub Actions, and then set about using OpenClaw to, I think they called it Hacker Claw, or I forget what they named but to just go hunt down repos that had vulnerabilities and then try to mess them up. And in some cases, it was really quite successful. And some of those cases involved repositories being deleted. One of those repos that was deleted was the Trivy, the CNCF project Trivy, which is a security-centric project, which is, um, yeah, which is maybe something that Ian's going to talk about later. I'm not sure. Um, anyway, yeah, good. So, Aditya, good to have you, man. So, your first year in your master's program?
Yeah, this is my first year.
Okay. You got a year and a half left. Is that right?
Basically, in Ireland, we got only a 1 year master's, so I got 2 semesters left.
Oh, okay. I see why you went to Ireland now. Okay, I get
Yeah.
it. All right, good. So, Suryansh, Mr. Garg, have you said hi before?
I know it's my first time. Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a pre-finance student doing Bachelor's of Technology from ABS Engineering College. So I've been exploring some repositories and I got to know about Meshery. So I have made like two, three contributions. Some of them are open in the CLI.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, that's a great place to get your hands dirty on the project. So that's nice. Yeah, good. No doubt you've probably gotten some feedback from Matthew, who's on the call today as well.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
good. All right. Anybody else on the call? Vincent, do you want to say hi, or anybody else that's new that would like to say hi?
Um, Hello guys. Hi, good day. So
Hey,
this is my
Vincent.
first time and I don't know, but yeah, hi everyone.
Hey, hey. Yeah, Vincent, where are you calling in from?
Oh, I'm calling from Nigeria.
Okay. I would never
Yeah.
have guessed. It's kind of like when, like Aditya, the guy that just introduced, I would have made a mistake and said, oh, he's calling in from India because that happens so often. But no, it's Ireland for him. And yeah, anyway, so for you, it's Nigeria. Wonderful. Um, are you near Lagos?
Okay, currently I'm in college, so I'm away from Lagos. I'm in the eastern part of Nigeria, but I stay in Lagos and Abuja.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
very good. Okay. All right.
and I'm a senior software engineer. Um, I'm still trying to navigate my way around the Meshery, right? I don't know how I would come in, but this time around, I've been seeing like this meeting. Like it's hard for me to get to this call, so eventually I figured out how to like get on the call, and yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, good. Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for making it though. Thanks for coming. I mean, yeah, there's a lot to dig into. Um, all right, good. It's time to jump into our topics. And the first topic up is from Jay. Um, Jay, you want
Uh,
to?
yeah, there is a message from Ian saying he. Do you want to go first, Ian? Like I saw your message,
Oh,
that's why I want to. Yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
sure. Yeah, if
Yeah,
you wouldn't
please go
mind,
ahead.
I guess
Yeah,
I could
yeah,
go.
yeah. Go ahead, go ahead, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, so let me take share. So the context of my PR is I'm trying to decompose the big build UI workflow for a couple of reasons. And this is what we have today. We have a certain trigger that has a security vulnerability with the pull request target. And also, if you look at this, it's hard to kind of comprehend on how and what is running and when. So we have a bunch of conditionals intertwined, I guess, with the logic of each job and step. So with this PR, I've started to try and decompose that so that we have certain jobs and actions that have predefined inputs and well-known outputs. So that'll allow us to essentially have a workflow that looks a lot like this. So I just did the first two steps. So you would build your backend, it would go off and do the workflow for that. Same with the UI. And then when we get down into the tests, we could essentially branch this off into some of our tests require a token or a secret username password Others do not. So we could essentially split that out and have that run on a PR or unsecure code. And then when we merge into master, we could expose the secret that is the token to run the authenticated tests. Similarly, we could also split out kind of the Docker steps that we have in our workflow here. So the same pattern would be kind of copy pasted into our Docker build test where we're exposing some secrets down here that maybe we don't necessarily need this to run on a PR, but we do want that to run when it merges or pushes into the main branch. So that's kind of the foundation of what I'm trying to necessarily accomplish with this. And this is just the initial kind of swing at it. So yeah, just hoping to get some thoughts, ideas, suggestions around it as we go forward. It does also look like there might have been some effort to do this 2 months ago with this rebuild UI server reusable workflow. It hasn't necessarily moved much since then, but this would kind of essentially shoulder that and hopefully bring it forward. So yeah, love your thoughts, comments.
I have already checked once. I will re-go. We try to take a look on it, but for me, it's the right way to go with GitHub Actions and workflows.
Yeah. Yeah, the difficulty is obviously with the testing. So this is creating a whole new workflow, right? Like so that I can test these actions independently of actually the releases. So hopefully that won't block anyone going forward then. And then we can kind of see what the implications are as this builds up. And, if it's good, it's good. If not, we just kind of nuke it and kind of go from there. But I do feel like it will help us with the maintainability of this and hopefully accomplish some of the security threats that have been highlighted in that code scanner report that you shared, Matthew.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it may. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. Hey, other comments or things like, yeah, it in a positive way, it should help with reusability, which is one of the things that you just mentioned. It adds to the complexity a little bit as you break down. I guess it both like simplifies a given workflow as you look over it. Each workflow hopefully gets a little bit smaller in terms of lines of code or lines of things that it's concerned with and does, which then makes it componentizes them and makes them reusable. It makes if it adds complexity, it would be by way of just ensuring an understanding of which one to call and when, and making sure that there's an interchange of the handoff of build artifacts from one to the next and stuff. But we're already like supremely into the thick of that. We already have we've got so many workflows, and we've got lots of them invoking other ones and other repos and over there and self-document. Like it's about as gnarly as I understand that things get anyway. And
Yeah.
we've got a security exposed. We're lucky that our repo didn't get deleted, I think. Or I don't know about how lucky we are. But my hunch is, had someone pointed that bot this way, it might have been the case that we were in the same situation.
Yeah,
That
and
yeah.
And just to highlight, like I do think it adds a little complexity because things are scattered a little bit, but hopefully it will draw clearer lines on where to put things, right? Like, I mean, a lot of these like sync results with QA, like, that may be easily squirreled away in one of these other reusable components versus in your main workflow. I saw that this was just picking on this because it's a recent addition to this workflow. So hopefully it will help us kind of logically place some of these, logical sections into different workflows that make more sense. And then you can say, hey, when this runs, I know exactly what it does versus like, well, there's kind of a condition up here. Like, let me sort through this and, oh, what's all this logic do? So on and so forth. So to the point of, yeah, I do think it adds maybe a little bit of complexity, but hopefully logical sorting of what goes where will help help us go forward.
Yeah. I agree. Actually, I would argue against my earlier statement to say that, yeah, to the extent that there's complexity in having all of these different, modular workflows, that on the other hand, the cleanliness that occurs because of that, and some of it is just like the lack of duplication or the deduplication that occurs because of that, the overall you end up in a less complex place, like ideally. And I think that that's probably true. Um, that to the extent that we repeated ourselves in terms of how it is that we publish to the QA system, for just as the example, when and where we're doing it and how many times we're repeating the same steps, I don't
Right.
know. And I don't
Yeah.
know. And that's just one
Yeah.
one of like
Yeah.
15, 20 different.
Exactly. And I don't know if it's the right spot to put like some of these actions. I mean, these could land in a separate org that we're calling into. They could be completely separate from Meshery if we feel like all the workflows that we have, and we have quite a few. If it would be better addressed, kind of coalescing these into, a Meshery GitHub workflow repo or something of that sort. But again, all those kind of concerns I think are down the line. Let's see if this will prove out to help us in the short term with, reusability, maintainability, and, kind of what runs when. And, most importantly, probably the security threats. And then we can kind of go off from there.
Ian, you'd put in some effort in the not too distant past in a document like this spreadsheet. Dropping a link in the Zoom chat. I think this is but this isn't the first time that you've come around and helped us get into a better place with what workflows are where, what they're doing, when they get triggered, which one depends on the other one, and what components are actually being tested. And
Yeah, let me see
I,
if I can pull that up. Zoom chat. You have it in Zoom chat?
yeah,
Um, let's see.
maybe I sent it. You know what? Never. I'm sorry. I sent it to the bot that messaged me earlier in Zoom
Oh
chat.
yeah. I hate that.
Here we go.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was trying to go through this, and again, I think this will be maybe at least our main workflow would not necessarily need a lot of the documentation since it would be clearly laid out, right? Like once this is updated, it easily goes out of date. So hopefully if we can separate things and it's a little bit more like I know what runs because I can look at the workflow. It's a little bit better. But yeah, I didn't get through the crux of some of the workflow that we have. So
Yeah, I'm with you. It's like that sheet is in some respects like a necessary evil that you hope is a one-time necessary evil because yeah, outside of its usefulness, to help organize things, the moment that you close the sheet, it is the moment that is likely to be out of date, and then it becomes worthless in that moment. But it was so worth it in the moment when it was getting organized. Um, I think that's a great goal to have, actually, is to be able to comfortably delete this sheet. You know what I mean? Like to the
right.
extent that it's evident from just the way that things are organized. And if one question on that I have for you, if you don't mind, is I'm curious as to whether or not GitHub supports subdirectories under the workflow directory, the workflows directory, because that might also just help in terms of like
Yeah.
as you try.
I don't believe so. I think what they would recommend is that these would be in a separate repository and you call into that repository, kind of like their Actions workplace or marketplace, if you've ever went there, right? They're all just kind of separate in there, but they're like flat directories. They don't allow a lot of nesting. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure I've never really seen like workflows and then like build workflows and subdirectory underneath that. But um,
Yes, I can confirm that subdirectories under the workflows folder is not working. We've
Yeah.
tried. Yeah, I am currently working, and it did not work, and we finally go with a dedicated repository that we call uh, to run the reusable actions or workflows.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's this GitHub script or GitHub action script maybe that we might be able to infuse a little bit more of its use now, and that could be helpful for how our workflows behave currently. And maybe that would be helpful should to the extent that we were to ever migrate to a more centralized QA repo. GitHub script is kind of, anyways, it's a nice way of being able to natively in GitHub Actions script over GitHub's API to control the. So
Yeah. Instead of standing up like a JavaScript custom action, right? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But and the other way of I think correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, but the changes that you have here, I don't know if you created these in a way in which if these are additive, I mean, then the existing flows can stay as they are, and these other ones can run, in a duplicative way. But there's
Yes.
no harm.
Yeah. So this one will I tried to do that. I just have some validation stuff. So I left the playwright kind of as is because this will be my next. I want to decompose this into secure and non-secure. So one that uses the password, one that doesn't use the password. Um, but all it does is build and run tests. So it doesn't post and it uploads those to the run. So I could see maybe this not working great if we had the same directory or if it would rewrite it. But yeah, to your point, I believe that this could run in the same parallel fashion as the other workflows, but hopefully just as a temporary. And then my thought was I could replace the steps in the one that works. If I know these workflows run and they run correctly, then I could just take this build backend, build UI, and put that in place where we're doing this whole job here. So this would essentially be simplified into build UI, right? Build backend, two steps, and then you'd start here. And then I just use this decomposed workflow as kind of a testing platform to just trigger, work through the bugs, and then simplify it once it gets stable in the main workflow. That's kind of what I was thinking versus like a hot swap of the workflows themselves.
Hey, for just of my one vote, for me, either way, works.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Also, perhaps one thing related to the naming, something that we have developed locally. It's when we are doing reusable workflow, like you do here for the build UI and build backend. We just add an underscore in the file name just to um, let know that when it starts with an underscore, the file name, it's a reusable workflow versus when there's no the underscore prefix, it's a workflow that we run that will be triggered.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So, right.
Perhaps
Okay.
that could be something that we can put in place. Find a naming convention for reusable workflows so that we know that those workflows will just be called by another workflow. Make sense?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay.
Anybody else have thoughts and feedback for Ian? Oh, yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for letting me jump in line.
Oh yeah. Um, Wonderful. Good. Okay. Wow. I am not the best host. It's terrible. Sir Yanch, Mr. Garg, you are up, sir. This is your first time on the call, so thanks for saying hi earlier. Just so you know, generally we always encourage people. Thanks for having your video on as well, by the way. Just so that you know, we generally encourage people to share their screen, or like, hey, when it's your turn is up, introduce your topic and kind of share what you've got.
Let me just share my screen. Yeah. Just a minute. So in this in this PR, I try to improve the Meshery CTL system status, because when I execute the Meshery CTL system status command before running the Meshery CTL system start, it tries to show the kubeconfig errors even when the server has not started. So I think it's bad for the user, because they don't know about whether the system has started or not. So it skips that part.
Yeah, makes yeah. Hey, yeah,
So
good. Let me yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that makes intuitively, or just like on the surface of it, that makes a lot of sense. So just to repeat that, you've got a Meshery user. They go to use the command line. They want to check on the Meshery's health, the deployment of their system. So they invoke Meshery system status, and instead of getting a message, or what can happen is instead of getting a message that says Meshery is unreachable or is not available, or something directly about Meshery server. Instead, what they get a message is Kubernetes is not reachable, is down, or can't talk to Kubernetes. And it's like, wait, what? Wait. Right? Is that what you're trying to? Okay. Yeah, great. And that might just be a. Yep. Okay.
so
Yeah, that might just be a change in what's being said back to the user, and not as much of a change in terms of the logic of the sequence of checks that go on. Let me clarify this a little bit, and that is to say that in Meshery as a project, if Meshery connects to one or more Kubernetes clusters, kind of however many you want it to manage and talk to. Now, when Meshery is managing a Kubernetes cluster, sometimes Meshery server can be inside of that very cluster, or it can be outside of it. Either way, it's just talking to Kubernetes API and helping manage it. And if you have Meshery up and running and you've connected it to different Kubernetes clusters, each cluster is represented as a connection. So you have this many Meshery connections. Okay, good. When you look at the project Meshery from the CLI, and you look at how the CLI interacts with Kubernetes clusters, for the most part, the CLI, I think, is the only other component in the Meshery project ecosystem. It's the only other component that, oh, no, it's not true. Generally, Meshery server is the one that talks to Kubernetes and talks to your clusters. Meshery CLI and Meshery CTL, it will directly talk to your clusters sometimes. And its most notable use case for when and why it is that Meshery CTL will directly talk to a Kubernetes cluster is it has to do with Meshery CTL's, one of its big jobs, one of its primary jobs is all of the commands that you find under the system command. One of Meshery CTL's primary jobs is managing your Meshery server deployments. Meshery CTL, it has many contexts. You can have many contexts, and it can manage many different Meshery server deployments. In order to deploy Meshery server into a Kubernetes cluster, Meshery CTL has to talk to Kube API, has to talk to Kubernetes clusters.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to clarify or start to clarify the interactions that Meshery components will have with Kubernetes clusters. Just before I proceed, I'll say, Kavitha, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one thing. When we actually run Meshery CTL system status without without starting the server, we get a short description, and then suggested remediation is also there, which says start Meshery server with Meshery system CTL system start, verify system readiness with the Meshery system Meshery CTL system check pre-flight and all those things. So with all those suggestions given, I'm just wondering like whether this is a bug worth fixing or not.
There is, yeah, I wonder if as we conclude this conversation, I think, yeah, it might be that there isn't a change, maybe. To help us get there, I'll say this. So officially, there are two platforms that Meshery project that we support deploying Meshery to. Officially, like if you go look at Meshery documentation and you want to install Meshery, how can you install Meshery? You can install it as a container. That's it. That's the only way that we allow people to deploy. We support people deploying Meshery. You can do it another ways. We just don't write it down and support that and track it and test it and all that. So we support deploying Meshery as inside of a container. Now, there are two container platforms that I think this is a fair way of saying it. It's pretty accurate. Like there's two container platforms that we support installing Meshery into. It's deploying that containerized version of Meshery. One is Docker, a Docker host or a Docker engine, a Docker desktop, because there are Meshery extensions for Docker desktop. Or Kubernetes, and it could be, there are many, many flavors or variant distros of Kubernetes. And so it's one of those two platforms. In both cases, it's the same artifact ultimately. It's the Meshery Docker image, Meshery container image that's built and released. It gets packaged in different ways. It packaged with Helm or packaged into a Docker extension, but ultimately the two platforms that are running it is either a Docker engine or a Kubernetes engine. So these are the two platforms. So when someone comes to Meshery, maybe for the first time, and the project, they want to install or deploy Meshery, they want to use it. Maybe they can choose different methods. Maybe they just go use Helm to talk to Kubernetes. Great. We often recommend that they grab our CLI and use that as the installation method. It can be helpful. They don't have to, but to the extent that they would go Meshery CTL system start. And they'll need to have present one of two platforms, either a Docker host or a Kubernetes API. And they can specify which one they want to use. That Meshery CTL will install and run those Meshery container images into those environments. It will use Docker Compose if you point it at a Docker platform. It will use Helm if you point it at a Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so if you have that mental context, a day later when someone comes back and they say, well, I wonder if my Meshery installation is doing fine. What's the status of that? Meshery CTL system status. Let's say that you've used the default platform, which is Kubernetes. That is recorded in your Meshery context, because you might have deployed Meshery like 5 different times. And of your current context, you run Meshery system CTL status. It says platform is Kubernetes. So it looks to your local kube config and try Meshery CTL wants to, it's checking on whether or not it can talk to Kubernetes. It's doing that because it is responsible for the initial deployment of Meshery server into that cluster. If you're only performing a system status check, I think you can make an argument that it's not strictly necessary that Meshery CTL system status talks to Kube API or talks to your chosen platform. It could just directly try to talk to Meshery server and ask how you're doing. Some of the ways in which we ask how you're doing, though, might be by talking to the platform and saying where, hey, Kubernetes, we're looking for where our Meshery server is. Where is it exposed? We also want to look at the logs. So the way that we look at the logs, we would be using Kubernetes, interfacing with Kubernetes to look at like Meshery CTL system logs. We don't go to Meshery server and say, hand us your logs. We go to Kubernetes and say, show us the containers logs. We do that same thing on Docker platform. We say, hey, Docker engine, show us the container logs for this container, for the Meshery container. We don't go to Meshery API. And so we've got a couple of concepts conflated or intermingled a little bit that on the surface of it, it would be crisp and clear if Meshery CTL system status just spoke to Meshery server's API. Part of understanding its system status, especially if you do a pre-flight check or a post-flight check, if you do a check and see how healthy your deployment is not just about Meshery server, it's about the environment. Do you have any local prerequisites on the machine, like Docker Compose? Is Kubernetes up?
I had Docker Compose.
Cool, perfect. I was proverbially saying like that's the responsibility of Meshery CTL to perform those checks, to check to see if the user has Docker Compose installed, just as an example. What I'm getting to is I'm really trying to help Jay and a couple of others wrap their minds fully around these set of concerns. And I think my suggestion is we probably do desire for Meshery CTL to the system status to potentially talk to Kube API, but it needs to be presented to the user as a secondary concern. If you're able to invoke Meshery CTL system status and you get a response back that Meshery server is responding and it's doing fine, that's what we want to show to the user. That's the foremost thing we want to show back is Meshery server is unavailable or offline, or Meshery server is available and online, and here's the version of it. And whatever system status details we're going to offer. As a secondary informational piece of information is like, oh, Kubernetes is unavailable. And that can be totally fine, totally reasonable. You may not have a kube config. You may not have access to the interface with Kube API. So Jay, does this make sense to you?
It does. I have just does this, like, I understand everything that you are saying, and especially the part that makes sense that I'm realizing now is when you mention it can have multiple contexts and it tries to like parse all those contexts and show you all the status of those. So um so does this make sense to have kubectl, sorry, not kubectl, Messenger system status dash p for platform dash dash context for choosing the context, and then it gives like a specific thing for that context and that platform. And Meshery CTL system status dash dash all gives everything.
It could. We don't have users beating down our door for that, or we don't
I
have
see.
users
I see.
running, 12 different mesheries and then saying, "Hey, it would be really convenient if to manage all of my 12 mesheries if we had that." Like, it's not a bad thing to have.
No, no, yeah. I mean, I was just wondering because so I would imagine the use case would be when people are using Meshery CTL to deploy server within the two engines, which is Docker or Kubernetes. They would probably have manage either one of them or maybe both at the same time, not more than that. Does it ever happen that people have maybe three different Kubernetes clusters in three different regions that they want to manage, and alongside they have some kind of dev QA with local Docker deployment, which is again fine. Just I'm trying to see
Yeah,
if
they do.
that's
Yeah, they do. And just to be clear with the other suggestion that you made about potentially being able to perform a status check across multiple
Mhm.
um, multiple contexts, multiple meshery contexts.
context. Yeah.
That one thing that's I don't know, you could say that it's missing from Meshery CTL, or you can just say it's out of scope, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a design spec for this next thing that I'm going to try to clarify is there's Kubernetes contexts
Mhm.
and there's Meshery contexts.
Mhm.
And when you look at your mesh config, when you look at your config.yaml and that um, if we like this is probably it's a little abstract for some of us. And so if I share a terminal real fast, if I'm using Meshery CTL, and so
Mhm.
on the machine that I'm on right now, there's just one Meshery context. And this one, it says that my Meshery server should be available here.
Mhm.
And when you interact with it and how you authenticate it with it, here's your JSON token. And I'm saying most of this not at J per se, but for everybody, or like, some of this stuff you guys are like, yeah, I know, but not all of us know. And here's the platform. In this case, this deployment is the target platform is Docker, but I could have like 15 of these, like to Jay's point, I can have like a whole bunch of these contexts, and I can use Meshery system context to switch between those. And what I wanted to point out is nowhere in this configuration where we would say platform Kubernetes, nowhere in this configuration does it say, oh, and by the way, of the 12 Kubernetes clusters that I'm using, because I've got a kube config and it's got like 15 clusters loaded up inside this config. So because there's 15 contexts, nowhere in there do we tether or link between kube contexts. There's a design spec. There's a design spec that's out there that proposes how that would be done. Users haven't been beating down. There's so many things for us to do. There's a design spec out there to do such a thing. That would be great. It would enable not only, it enable a few things. To try to land the plane on Sir Yansh's issue is the reason that it's not an immediate yes to what Kavitha said about, hey, is this really something that we need to solve? Or that, can we set this aside? The reason it's not an immediate yes is because it's a UX concern where it is confusing to users who go like this. Status. How's my Meshery CTL doing? This is where it's either really pleasant, people are pleasantly surprised that there's a level of intelligence built into Meshery CTL to help you do what you're attempting to do. Or we've over-engineered and done the thing that I've been preaching about on the soapbox for the last, couple of sessions of like, it's either like, oh, yeah, it's not even running. I mean, Docker isn't even running. That's where Meshery is supposed to be. So how could Meshery be running? Like, or maybe it is, and it's like, hey, stop, just please do this specific thing that I asked you to do, which is I don't have access to Kubernetes. And but that doesn't mean that Meshery, I can't access Meshery. I probably can. And so so when people run this and they get a message saying Kubernetes is not available, they're like, what? Thanks, but that's not what I asked. So I'm going to leave that with Suryansh to think about it a little bit, but really, Jay, I might ask if look for your leadership here, partnering up with Suryansh and Matthew and Kavitha and whomever else wants to spend brain power thinking about the best UX.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, please.
So I think, as you're mentioning, I think there are two ways to do this, which is like be more user friendly or be more power usery, which is like you give more power to user and they know all the flags. They have to do this help command. They don't know which flag, when to pass and how to order them, or you just keep it very simple where you just say system status and it looks through, it checks everything and it says, okay, these are the things that are not running, or if it requires Docker, it just runs Docker. So um, uh, I mean, I would typically ask which way does Meshery's vision align? That would be my question. Like, is it more simplistic, user friendly, or is it more power user? Or do you want to have like I mean, this is again over engineering, right? You want to have a flag that lets users switch to power user mode or something along those
Well,
lines.
yeah, or and the way that I would phrase where to be cautious with the over engineering is I should more accurately say to avoid being overly presumptuous to the extent that you're trying to do the right thing for the user but end up getting ourselves into just this constant maintenance and trouble of here's a potentially middle of the road answer or UX, which is if someone runs Meshery CTL system status, that if the foremost response is it's like, oh yeah, I didn't, of course, I'm not even running. Yes, thank you. And that was so convenient and wonderful. I obviously Meshery isn't running because if it were to first say, Meshery CTL is could not establish connection Meshery server at this location, unavailable, unreachable. You have to be very careful with the words that are said because it's like it is. And the tests underneath need to be specific. Is it unreachable or is it unavailable? Those are two totally different things.
Yeah.
I mean, they sound extremely similar, but is it unreachable? Is it unavailable? Can you not authenticate? Or are you not authorized? And there's like, and you got to be careful with what you say back because it may be, someone may have a heart attack if they like, it's unavailable. What, the system's down? I don't, but no, you just were on the wrong network or something. So anyway, if the initial response back was, Meshery at this location is unreachable, is Meshery online or what? Some question or something. But it could prompt with a second nice, pleasant question where it says, it also looks like the platform, I mean, in a less verbose way than I'm saying, the platform specified for this context also appears to not be available. Oh, hey, would you like us to start that? Like that can be, you can get both potentially without getting stuck in this, like, yeah, no, I don't want you to start it, but I do want you to like, do this other thing I asked you to do. And yeah. So I think what Suryansh is like the reason that this came up is it looks very similar. Okay, I should. If your platform were Kubernetes, it's a Meshery CTL system. Okay. I think there's some command that lets you switch the
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah. So, do you mean start with Kubernetes or just okay context set platform? Yeah.
I was going to try to like without having to edit the.
Yeah.
Who else has thoughts on this topic? Yeah, please, Kavitha.
Yeah.
We do have some flags on platform and context. They do not work necessarily in the combination that has been brought up here. But as Lee was saying, you guys can team up and see if a combination of those two flags can be used in some way. That won't require a lot of work, I believe. But yeah, we do have those context flags, hyphen context and -p as well. In terms of usability, typically what we see works well is when you run something like status, you can say something like, could not find a Meshery server. Do you want to configure one now? Right? And that should give the user the information that Meshery CTL cannot talk to a Meshery server right now. So either you create one, or you just go to the config file and modify the parameters to point to an existing one in case it's a configuration issue. But yeah, I mean, we definitely don't want to over-engineer that in the sense that at some point it becomes confusing and a lot of too many options for people to kind of get confused about on how to configure that and all. We've had a similar discussion earlier as well, Lee, if you remember. And one of the things that we kind of uh, came down to is that the documentation should say that the configuration file is present, and that seems to be a good place to kind of check if you don't have Meshery CTL talking to a Meshery server or something to begin with.
See, I believe like I think there is a I'm hearing a lot of ideas, but I think it would be better to like put them in a doc and I think just discuss it first and maybe like come up with a flow diagram where it's more understandable for everyone here and people who are even using and not involved in the direct development to see like what makes sense. Then we can possibly vote and go if that makes sense.
If a new diagram is created, yeah, be sure to use a Meshery design so we can use the tool.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yep. There's been an ungodly number of hours that have been spent on just this, just system start on the system status, and I think it is possible to get the best of both worlds or all worlds. And sometimes, yeah, it's for those power users, they are aware of the additional flags and they are aware that like they are opinionated about it, so they can take advantage of those if they want. Yeah. Kavitha, did you have a final?
Yeah. It's not a final opinion or something like that, but I just wanted to tell that while I was starting off with playing around with Meshery, the installation and all, I had actually used in Docker desktop, and I had actually seen the same issue even when Docker was actually running that. Docker, I mean, looks like Meshery server is not available. Docker is not available. Docker is not installed. That kind of issue. So each time I actually use Meshery CTL, I consciously close the running Docker desktop, and then I get it running properly. I think it is written somewhere in the doc, but I'm really not sure where it is. But there is a you know uh, a sentence written like if you are using a Docker desktop and then the Docker installation, standalone installation, you might face this issue, something like that. So I think the problem that we are actually seeing now is because the state machine, when you look at Meshery as a state machine, it's fairly complex. So it's not just running from just one point to the next point. So I mean, when you design intuitiveness, you try to put some intuitiveness into such things. It becomes some point we might actually end up over engineering, even though we don't intend to. It's just a side effect of that.
Is that a Windows machine?
It's mine isn't, but
No, Kavita's.
oh,
No, mine is actually Ubuntu. I don't use
Okay.
Windows for
There are
this.
some known issues on Windows, so that's fine.
Yeah, this is actually, I think during installation, when I was going through the installation guide itself, it was written like when you are using, there are various ways of using Meshery, right? By using the Meshery extension on Docker desktop and all those stuff. So I actually faced the same. I saw the same message when I tried to use Meshery when the Docker desktop was actually running with the Meshery extension. So that's why I thought I'll actually just tell about it.
so Matthew, do you, given that we're at the top of the hour, what do we want to do about your topic?
I think Matthew had to leave. If I
Oh, okay.
if I remember, he had to almost like half an hour back.
Oh, okay. Well, that answers that question. Or for Guanming, this is a nice juicy topic. We'll need to tee it up for next time. Does anyone have anything that we missed? Or Suryansh, did that get you further along? Get you introduced to Jay? And part of there is a UX guide for how to write our CLI commands. It does, I think, say something about a Meshery as a piece of software, hopefully pleasantly, like delightfully surprising the user. And it's a wonderful feeling if done well, but it's also a slippery slope. There's a UX guide. There is a full doc in our Meshery docs that talks about like take inspiration from Docker CLI, from kubectl, take these approaches, have these considerations. For my part, if I didn't give it any more thought, I think like what I pasted into the Zoom chat is perhaps a slight improvement, or like run the anyway because anyway that's something for you guys to chew on. I would definitely lean into. I called out Jay a number of times, but I should mention Sangram as well. He's installed more software than I've written, or like just yeah. Hopefully we can do both. Hopefully we can. Some of it is like we want to make it as reusable as possible and fairly consistent, fairly straightforward. We want to be concise. We want to also offer up a suggestion when you misspell a CLI command and it says, "Did you mean this?" You're like, "Oh yeah, thanks, good." There's some intelligence there. It feels good. It feels like it's on your side. It's trying to help you. It didn't just run it for you, just assuming that you missed, that you accidentally misspelled something. Maybe you were intending, like, so there's a balance. But yeah, it can be very helpful, especially if it's like couldn't reach Meshery server, running diagnosis in 3, 2, 1, unless you press cancel, running diagnosis 3, 2, 1 diagnosis, but I'm gonna whoever keeps yeah. Good. I can see that someone's super bored on our meeting. Sangram, any parting thoughts before we conclude today?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I think the installation will always, it's the same thing with kubectl as well. I mean, or similar CLIs. PowerShell is even challenging for someone who's just getting started with. We had a tough time with OCI CLI, if you remember, Lee.
Yeah.
Right. So we just have to, kind of understand how much is like good enough. And as I was saying, I think a CLI is definitely for someone who's a bit technical and more leaning towards the power user. So we can definitely expect them to, or they can be expected to kind of know a bit on the docs and learn how to configure it and stuff like that. But the outputs can definitely be a bit more descriptive or simple to kind of give clues on, what's happening or what's expected out of the command if something is missing and things like that.
Thanks a bunch, guys. Umkar, be sure to add your agenda item to the meeting minutes so that we can get to it next time. In the meantime,
Yes, sir.
pop up in Slack. It's great.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
Yes,
thanks.
sir.
Yeah, thanks everybody. We'll catch you next time. See you for the newcomers meeting. Yeah. See you guys.